Welcome to today's transmission of the Ministry of Assumption. Absolute. What if, what if the snake was not the problem? And if we look at the symbolism of that, we can use some of these ancient teachings to transform our perspective on the power that we have to make lasting change in our lives, but we have to correct the position through which we see ourselves. And maybe that's what Genesis was talking about. My name is Lucian. I'm a spiritual epidemiologist broadcasting from the Electric Temple, and I'm here to encourage you in knowing with empowered conviction the truth of your transcendent divinity to live as the love that you already are. And this is not a message for Christians. Like, I don't know, last time I talked about this and I did like a really, I think that message was called, the garden was a lie. I looked at it. That's a longer, this is going to be a shorter version of what I had to say there, because it's the teaching that has guided everything I know at this point in time about, what do we know? But my current level of consciousness has led me to believe that Genesis was the beginning of, obviously it was the beginning of everything, but that was the beginning of hell. Like I've even talked to clients who literally have said that, like, I'm a misogynist because the Catholic Church taught me that women are evil and need to be contained and constricted. And, this whole situation with Eve where she, essentially became the mother of all damnation. My grandmother was fiercely Catholic, and she even told me that, like, Eve was the reason that women had periods, or just like some crazy shit. Like, Eve got blamed for fucking everything. And I'm also very much not concerned with if it happened that way or not. Like, if there were like literal characters, or if we're talking about Adam and Atom, or an Eve, the beginning, like, is this all symbols? I personally just believe that we're living in a holographic reality. This is all illusory. This is the dream. This is the afterlife. And we have these ancient texts, and that there's been many resets of all of this, and that we have these ancient texts to like point us back to the truth if we're really, really looking for it. Seek and ye shall find. So, Eve got blamed for all of it, but I don't think Eve was the problem. I don't think the snake was the problem. I think it was the beginning of knowledge, because if you think about this, now, why would someone tell you not to eat from the tree of knowledge? So this is paradise, right? It's paradise. I see all of this as what we're given. Like the Garden of Eden, I could equate that to the Matrix, to this is what we're given. You're given a partner and you're given work to do. You're given a certain amount of things to keep you busy. And then there's, quote unquote, dominion over the land. And you can look, I did a more specific breakdown on like the text itself, but, just read Genesis 1, you'll have dominion over the land and the fish and the sea and the air and all this other stuff, as long as you just like stay here, and you can do anything else but eat from, and this is, definitely more of a Gnostic inspired perspective as well. You can do anything but eat from the tree of knowledge. Just on like a point blank basis. And I think I came here to remember, because I've had so many past lives where I was just messing around and just not evolving, not ascending. I guess I can't say that. I guess like I learned as I look back from what, I have awareness of what those past lives are. I guess I have the memory of like what I wasn't doing. So, but just to me, like on a basic level, like even in Sunday school, I was like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. This doesn't make any sense. So, there's all this busy work, there's all this stuff to do. And like, that's the Matrix. That's the world of like bills and, concerning yourself with like, a partner and the outside. And there's this, idea of an authority figure that you can't piss off, that everything's fine as long as you don't piss this authority figure off. And the way you don't piss the authority figure off is you don't eat from the tree of knowledge. So as long as you don't know anything, like it's telling you, like as long as you know nothing, And what is it? And what is the secret knowledge? You know, so then the serpent comes up and is like, "Oh, hey, did you know that you're like God, like God, like God? You are God, God of your reality. You know, you're not the God of the entire everything. Obviously, you know, because then you wouldn't be in a meat suit. You wouldn't be in the illusion of separation, experiencing an awareness through a body if you were all of everything, but that you are an individualized expression of that. That's the grand thing. And then they get casted out, of course, because I mean, this could happen like on a job level. Like, you know, if you question, this is the first rule of power, Robert Greene, don't go around questioning your boss. Don't go around asking them why they do things a certain way. Or, you know, if you're neurodivergent, I've had many neurodivergent clients who were like, all I was trying to do was suggest that the procedures that we had in place were inefficient, and that per my job description, I had configured a new way to do whatever the task was. And then people got pissed at me, and then I got socially mobbed, and then they fired me. Now, you know, if we're talking about like the law of assumption, did that individual, or, you know, the slew of individuals that I've worked with on a one-on-one basis, they were in a level of consciousness that would have suggested that they believed about themselves that I'm not appreciated, that I'm not wanted, that this type of thing always happens. You know, so there was other stuff going on in the background there. But what I was using that as an example of, because I mean, I've seen it even in the real world, is it's like, you don't want to, if somebody has a system in place, and especially if it's like, you know, just a bureaucratic, just red line, just like, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter if there's a better way. What matters is that you are not suggesting that you know more than them. You're not suggesting that you're on the same level, that you could, you know, make these, those types of assertions. So, I mean, like that was the Garden of Eden. So then, I mean, let's look at the symbols here. You know, this snake, what does snakes represent? You know, we don't need to go deep into Jungian depth psychology. Snakes represent transformation, rebirth, death and rebirth. What does a snake do? It sheds its skin, and it wanders on up to Eve, which could be a beginning, but more importantly, wanders up to the feminine aspect of the Garden of Eden, and the feminine aspect, more curious, and everybody has a feminine and masculine aspect of themselves. I'm not suggesting superiority to one or the other, but this snake transformation wanders up to curiosity, the curious beginning, wanders up to what's available, what's more fluid, what's yielding, what's receptive. These are all energies that could be associated or grouped under a feminine category. And again, I'm not talking about body parts, we're talking about aspects of incarnation or of energy movement. So that was the message. You are going to have to realize that you are the one in control of all of this, and that message has been deliberately has been deliberately veiled from you, but that when you come into this knowledge, you will descend into a type of darkness, because you've been operating in the dark really the entire time. Now there's just knowledge of what that darkness specifically was, how it was. You know, there's a episode of the first episode of Ancient Civilizations on Gaia actually says that, I think like the original translation, like the Greek translation or something like that, I'll have to pull it up, of paradise was really more like confinement, was not like we think of paradise, like a paradise vacation, like more like a jail room type of. So I mean, like the message is there. Now, how does this, you know, what is the practical application of this? Is that, one, you have to take responsibility for yourself as the creator of your reality. It's realizing the position through which you're viewing the screen of consciousness, or the, what's happening in your 3D, what perspective, what position are you viewing that as? Are you viewing that as the individual that is subject to all of these wills outside of you? Because that was Adam and Eve prior to the serpent's intervention. The serpent was like, girl, let's sit down and talk about what's going on here. I can't watch it anymore. And what that means is that everything happening in your life, it's already dead. It's already dead. If it's already manifested, it's already dead, which means you don't have to continue assigning it to yourself, but you can use it as feedback as to what you were assigning to yourself. That you don't have to keep living that life, that every moment can be a new moment. Every single second that we have, you can, because manifestation is instant. Materialization, there is the illusion of time that is at play there, in terms of, how things come together and coalesce in the material world and the third density. But the manifestation is instant. So if you view yourself as in the position of the source of what you're seeing, then what that means is that you have to stay in that state of the desired reality. And what's weird is that choosing lack, fear, and scarcity can actually feel more safe because we know what that feels like. Freedom to fly, I think of like eagles, to fly like an eagle. It can be scary because if you're used to fear and the ego teaches you that you always have to be anticipating what's going to happen next. But freedom, the all, the wholeness, the total, the state of I am, coming back to that, the center of your heart space, the true essence of your being, when you come back to that, there's knowing that what I decide for my reality is what I will experience because I am experiencing it now. There's not all of this, like the ego is the one that's concerned about, yeah, but what if? And if you're here getting a, yeah, but what if, like, that's the ego speaking. And the ego is still then a creation, is still then a product of your infinite awareness, is not the one in charge. The ego thinks it's the one in charge, and we need an ego. We need a self-concept to operate here on this plane. Like, we can't get around that. But the ego operates in terms of familiarity. And if you have had a past where lack, fear, and scarcity were what's familiar, then your ego is going to tell you, we can't fly. We can't just jump off that tree and just expect that the wind is going to take us, and, the physics of flapping wings. Think about all those other times you failed, and then it's going to start replaying, because that's all it can do, is it can loop the past. So you have to come back to your knowing of what you've decided in the kingdom within. That's the transformation. That's the knowing. That's the understanding. So it's one, understanding your position as the creator of your reality, and two, deciding that what you're given is what the snake's whole message is, that, like, you don't have to accept what you've been given. You've been given this land and this work, and whatever God said, and like God, I don't know, really more like a demiurge, I think, but whatever the boss of this land, I don't even think that was a God, but like the projection of the boss of this land, you don't have to be happy with that. If you don't like it, you don't have to take what you're given. And the way that I interpret that is, like, you don't have to accept your family destiny. You don't have to accept the past as your present or as evidence as to what your future is going to be. You don't have to take any type of external circumstance and apply it to your internal destiny, no more than you choose to. But we have to make that choice, which comes back to number one. We have to see ourselves in the seat of the power of the creation. We are individualized expressions of God, like God. And if we don't live in that seat of creation, and I do imagine it kind of like a seat as a throne, if we're not in the space of taking, here's the thing, nobody needs to teach you to manifest. You're already manifesting. You're already manifesting. You're already materializing. It's just a matter of what position are you doing it from. If you're seeing yourself as, if the state of your I am is, I am always experiencing hardship, strife, struggle, conflict, because of all of these, and then you can have a list of reasons as to, why those things are the case, then even though you're sitting in the seat of the divine creator in the kingdom within, you're operating as though you're at the mercy of its effects. You're operating as a victim to your own awareness. And you're the one creating those circumstances in the first place. So that's my two practical takeaways for today. Is it one, seeing yourself as the source, as the I am, like there's nothing else happening outside of you other than what you're giving to yourself, which at first is daunting, is terrifying, is even like, God, well, what a mess I've created for myself. And that has to do with what we've been taught to believe and what we keep recreating in each new now moment because of what we've been taught to believe, because what we think has to be the case because of the past, or because of what we saw, or because of what we were told. And it doesn't have to be. And then you decide to choose. You decide that I don't have to. I mean, if your current environment is great and it's cool and things are fine, then things are fine. But if you look around and you're like, this doesn't feel like I'm living as the God of my reality, this doesn't feel like what I chose, what I selected, then you don't have to keep choosing that. That's transformation, We co-created this moment. Like, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You just co-created this moment with me for me to mirror back that truth to which you already knew and understood. We're just dealing with this whole incarnation amnesia business. Transformation wandered on up and says, you don't have to keep taking this.